All right, everybody, we are live with the Working Fans podcast. Me and AJ back at it again for a second week in a row. This time, a little unfortunate circumstances, but we decided to get together to talk about the life and career of Hulk Hogan. The biggest icon in wrestling, as they used to say with the NWO. The biggest icon in wrestling. Hollywood Hogan. Man, I've been watching a lot of WCW from 1997 lately, and there's so much Hogan on here, and it's really interesting to watch this guy. And I was never just separating, the man and the character. And even the character, I was not the biggest Hogan fan. I liked Hogan. You weren't necessarily a fan, but at all. But like to me, he was just too dominant. I always like someone who's a bit of an underdog a lot of times, like the Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant.
But we're not here to talk about our likes. What we're here to do, you got to ask yourself, what you going to do, brother, when the legacy of Hulk Hogan runs wild on you? When you think of professional wrestling, one name instantly comes to mind. It's Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
From red and yellow to black and white, from body slams to box office hits, Hogan defined an era of professional wrestling and then redefined another era and changed the wrestling business forever. That can't be denied.
No, not at all. It's funny. I was listening to Monday Night Raw last night, and AJ Styles actually was quoted as saying Hogan was so big, when you told people you wrestled, they would just say, "Oh, is that like what Hulk Hogan does?"
Exactly. And I think that the best way to really get a hold of that is for us to start with the first segment and, quite frankly, talk about the rise of Hulkamania.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the rise of Hulkamania. So we want to go. So, I mean, you're going to start in the rise. So we're kind of skip over being trained by Hero Man Suda and stuff like that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. All of that stuff is important to his career, but that's not the legacy of Hulk Hogan. The legacy really started when he exploded onto the mainstream in the early 1980s. Yes. First with the Rocky movie, and then exactly. And then in 1984, when he defeated the Iron Sheik for the WWF Championship, that truly ignited Hulkamania. Sorry.
Absolutely. I would say Rocky 3 was the first time I really remember seeing Hogan early on, even before watching him win the title. And I mean, we'll talk about this because you're going to look at his legacy. But I would say if we're going to talk about Hulkamania, though, it is fair to say that those roots, though, did probably start in AWA.
They did, because he was technically with the AWA, and he was exploding buildings off with his matches with Nick Bockwinkel. He also was selling merchandise, which is one of the reasons why he got into trouble with the AWA. Is Vern Gagne wanted a piece of the merchandise that Hogan was making himself and selling out at the buildings.
Right. Yeah.
Which is one of the things that made it easy for him to say yes to Vince McMahon and going to the WWF.
Right. And so Rocky 3's happened already, and Vince McMahon Jr. is, unlike his father, he had no problem with Rocky 3. He loved it. He comes in, like you said, he beats the Iron Sheik for the title, and we're off.
Well, with his charisma, the 24-inch pythons, catchphrases like "say your prayers and eat your vitamins," Hogan, quite frankly, became an instant cultural icon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say he was already huge right after beating the Iron Sheik and everything. But the next thing we're probably going to talk about, Roddy Piper, with every great hero. Yeah,
absolutely. He bridged the gap between wrestling and pop culture by not only appearing in movies and TV shows and on cereal boxes, but with his connection to rock and wrestling. He made it cool and made people want to be a part of these events with the rock and roll edge. And it's so weird because now we look back on him, and obviously he's become the old guard, but he really was the hip, cool thing.
Absolutely. That war to settle the score. WrestleMania with Mr. T. Mr. T was such a big star too in that time. So to see Hulk Hogan, who's the biggest star in wrestling, teaming up with this biggest star in action movies, for me, or action TV shows, that was so huge as a kid too. So
with all these things that we've talked about, I don't think it's even arguable, quite frankly, that he helped Vince McMahon not only launch the WWE, but to turn it into the national powerhouse that it became.
Absolutely. And the Hogan and Piper, WrestleMania, all that stuff was huge. He was rolling. I would say WrestleMania 2, when we get to like Bundy and stuff, I would say, I don't want to say it declined, but I say we're kind of tapering off. But then we're about to explode again.
Well, quite frankly, what I have for segment 2 is he was the face of WrestleMania. Before Shawn Michaels was Mr. WrestleMania, Hogan was the face of WrestleMania. Absolutely. I mean, he headlines the first 9 WrestleManias, including unforgettable moments where he wrestles Andre the Giant in front of 93,000 fans in the Pontiac Silverdome. He passes the torch to the Ultimate Warrior, who then drops the torch and catches his boots on fire. He then WrestleMania 18, even later in his career, Icon versus The Rock. How huge is that?
Yes.
WrestleMania's success and survival in those early days is directly tied to Hulk Hogan's drawing potential and power. Absolutely.
And I mean, obviously, you're talking about the face of WrestleMania. You're talking about coming in, WrestleMania 18. But before that stop at WrestleMania 18 and all that stuff, there was another thing he did.
Yeah, and that to me is one of the most important segments that we can talk about. The ability to reinvent himself.
Yes.
In 1996, Hogan had become as stale as humanly possible. I don't think there were many people cheering for the yellow and red anymore.
No, and he was in CW at this point, but
absolutely.
And some of those southern markets too, especially, were not big into Hogan already, who had grown up in Flair territory.
But is there anybody who wasn't stunned by the whole world who, when he turned heel and joined Scott Hall and Kevin Nash to form the New World Order?
It made a lot of sense, like in retrospect, like he reinvented himself, but it was so shocking because the red and yellow and the good guy, I remember thinking, there's no way it can be Hogan. I remember saying that to you. Well, there's no way it's going to be Hogan. And you'd be like, no, they're not going to do Hogan. They'll probably do Sting. I think I remember you saying to me when we were younger, like, they should do Hogan, but they won't do Hogan. They'll do Sting.
and Hollywood Hogan, quite frankly, brought a new layer to his character, proving that he wasn't one-dimensional. He wasn't just this one character that we had grown up on. He had the ability to do more than that. The NWO angle helped WCW and, quite frankly, was responsible for them finally beating the WWE for 83 straight weeks in the Monday Night Wars. It shaped the wars.
It really did. It changed wrestling a lot. The whole Monday Night War, Monday Night Wars changed wrestling, whether it's contracts and people making more money, everything. And it really catapulted with Hogan turning at Bash at the Beach.
Well, I know we're going to go into legacy, but quite frankly, Hogan showed longevity by evolving, becoming one of the greatest villains in wrestling history and ushering in a grittier, more adult era of wrestling. And that brings us to, obviously, his legacy.
Yes. And go ahead.
I was just going to say his legacy beyond the ring. Hogan, his influence paved the way for future megastars like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena. It opened up doors in Hollywood. It opened up doors in other things other than professional wrestling. He made pro wrestling a global phenomenon. His name is still recognizable worldwide. All you got to do is look at the response. The guy got booed the last time we seen him because of obviously some of his political views and where he's been and some of the things that he's done. But look how people are mourning the legacy now. And the controversies and the personal struggles that made him complicated. But his contributions to wrestling, quite frankly, are undeniable.
Yeah, I mean, Terry Bollea may be a controversial figure that some people are going to love or hate, but Hulk Hogan was universally, for the most part, loved and respected on a global stage as far as pro wrestling goes. He was the Michael Jordan of pro wrestling, the Mike Tyson of pro wrestling, the Tiger Woods. He was the biggest star.
At the end of the day, he isn't just a wrestler. He's a genre-defining figure who helped build the foundation of modern sports entertainment.
I agree. Now, is there anything before we get to matches or rivals you want to put a bow on this?
Yeah, to me, the closing for me is whether you loved him or you loved to boo him like I did, Hulk Hogan left an indelible mark on professional wrestling. He was the first superhero in spandex, the original crossover star, the man who made wrestling larger than life. So as we wrap up this portion of the tribute, let's remember the words himself. To all my Hulkamaniacs, what you going to do when Hulk Hogan and his legacy run wild on you?
Right. I love it. Hulk Hogan. He was a legend at the end of the day. And I'm not going to really add too much more to that because I'm excited to get to the matches. All right. And I thought I'd use this one, even though this might have been better for the legacy. I'm going to use this for the matches because we talked about it. We're going to go into rivals because I think matches and rivals are different. All right. The only thing I have missing here is going to be the NWO at Bash at the Beach because I've put that more of a moment.
Well, it's not he wasn't in the match.
Right. Yeah. So, but for matches, I went memorable. And AJ, I'm gonna throw a match down, and if you have it, we'll just agree on it. Number one for me was Andre the Giant. I mean, to me, that's his biggest match of all time. Body slamming him. It put a stamp on everything.
It's the slam heard around the world. 93,000 plus fans, Pontiac Silverdome. To me, this was the moment that solidified wrestling as a mainstream spectacle.
All right. WrestleMania 1 main event. I have that on here. Him and Mr. T versus Wonderful and Piper. Same thing. Just very memorable because this kind of kicked it into overdrive too. I will say I thought about having the war to settle the score on here instead, but I thought that was the lead all to this. So, but do you have this?
I do not have that in my top 5. It is one of the worst matches I've ever seen in my life.
Match. It's not a great match. So it was more of a memorable match. That's what I went with a lot.
Yeah, I get that. That's my number 2, and you probably have this on your list, is Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, WrestleMania 18.
I do.
Icon versus Icon. It was an electric crowd. Hogan was supposed to be the heel. He got cheered to a point where he obviously became the face in the match. Mm-hmm. It was the passing of a torch from one megastar to another megastar and a renaissance for Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, and Rock, he was so good in that too that he was able just to twist his character a little bit as the match was going on. So hats off to them. I did have that match at number 3, so I'll ask you, what is your number 3?
My 3 is Hogan versus Savage, WrestleMania 5.
Okay.
The Mega Powers explode, a year-long story arc. I think we forget sometimes how big that story arc was and how long they drew out that story arc. And quite frankly, it was a peak storytelling. It was betrayal. It was real-life tension behind the scenes. It had everything in that match you could imagine.
All right. My number 4, Ultimate Warrior. Number 6, WrestleMania 6.
That's my number 5. So we've got another one in common. It's champion versus champion. I knew how much that meant as a kid. Warrior pins Hogan cleanly. We have never seen Hogan pin cleanly.
And it's the aftermatch of that match that makes it so memorable. The fact that Hogan did put Warrior. Hogan did everything he could to launch Warrior.
And we forget how split the fans were.
They were.
You had the Hogan fans and the Warrior fans, and it really was a split division.
Absolutely. All right, so that was not your number 4. What's
my number 4 is Hulk Hogan versus Sting.
Okay.
Arcade 97. Even though the match I don't feel went off as well as it should have, it's WCW's arguably most anticipated match ever.
Yes.
It is Sting returns after a year of standing in the rafters.
Yep.
Botched finish aside, this match represented WCW's rebellion against the NWO, and it was the biggest storyline to me in WCW history.
All right. Were you there?
Yeah, did you not hear that?
Botched finish was the last thing I heard, so that could.
Oh, sorry. So I was saying, botched finish aside, this match represented WCW's rebellion against the NWO.
Perfect. All right. Well, then I will wrap up my number 5. And I got to tell you, I did a YouTube short for matches and moments. And one of the ones I had on was Vince McMahon from WrestleMania 19, because I thought that was like, it was a wild spectacle. But somebody called me out on one of the matches, and I told them, I said, you're right, I forgot about this match. So I put this as my number 5. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Saturday night's main event, Hartford, Connecticut, the steel cage. They come down at the same time, and then they have to get back in. Very memorable moment as a kid.
That would have been my number 6, quite frankly.
Yes.
Love the match. Love Paul Orndorff.
Yes.
I think the only reason it doesn't make my top 5 is if Paul Orndorff had won and they gave it to him the way they should have, because his feet did touch first, then I probably would have had that as number 1.
And I actually heard years later that if they had not gotten Andre at WrestleMania 3, the plan was to try to get Mr. Wonderful in that spot, which I thought makes sense now watching that cage.
Which would have been amazing. Obviously, Andre was not in the prime of his career, was no longer healthy. It would have been nice to see Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff do it. I don't know if they would have sold it the way that they did.
Oh, probably not. But all right, you're number 5? Or did we do that?
No, I've already done all 5 of mine because we agreed on a couple of them, and then my number 5 was actually Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior.
All right, then we will get to greatest rivals as we look at Hulk Hogan, who did spend some time in TNA Impact Wrestling, and I do have a rivalry on there that spanned the TNA part of his career, so we'll talk about that. But we're going to go at number 1 again. Number 1 again for me, his greatest rival, Andre the Giant. I put that down. I know he's not going to, I know he's talking about some of these matches and rivals would be different, but to me, that still is also his top rivalry for me.
I agree 100%. He's number 1 to me because, quite frankly, it goes back before 1984.
It does.
Right. Andre versus heel Hogan at Shea Stadium. They wrestled for years before even getting to that point. Obviously, Vince McMahon likes to erase some of that history. But the Unbeatable Monster turned bitter enemy. Their rivalry made Hogan look superhuman, quite frankly. And it's a rivalry rooted in real life pride, a little bit of jealousy and respect.
I agree. And as much as we talked about Hogan earlier in the earlier segment, making people like the Ultimate Warrior and Sting, Andre the Giant helped make Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, 100%. That's who do you have for your number 2?
Number 2, I know this guy's going to be somewhere on here probably for you. Roddy Piper. When you look at the war to settle the score, and you look at WrestleMania, but also years later in WCW, Icon versus Icon, I had to have Piper in there as a top rival.
Piper's my number 3.
Okay.
I have Piper as number 3. Piper never let Hogan get comfortable. The verbal wars were incredible. They're iconic. Piper never gets pinned cleanly by Hogan ever. Yeah. And, I mean, that says everything.
And I like what you said there. Piper never lets Hogan get comfortable verbally. As I go back and I watch 97, Piper is not afraid to call Hogan baldy or make fun of his hair and do a lot of other things that people wouldn't necessarily do. And I thought that was, So who was your number 2 then?
Well, I'm going to guess my number 2 is probably somewhere on your list, the Macho Man Randy Savage.
He was my number 3. So we now know our 3s. So
to me, Macho Man, obviously, great tag partners. But behind the scenes, there was so much complexity emotionally between the two of them. Jealousy, Macho Man always trying to get to where Hogan's at. Hogan kind of holding off Macho Man. It was a great rivalry on screen and off screen.
Yeah, I agree. I always think when I was looking at like pictures and stuff for some of this stuff, it was like, you got lust in your eyes, Hogan. You got lust in your eyes for Elizabeth. And the story they tell in that 1 year build too, where Savage wins the title and he's teaming with Hogan, and you see Hogan kind of have Liz on his shoulders and everything like that. They really made Savage kind of a sympathetic heel in some ways. What's up, Braxton? Thank you for tuning in, brother. So, all right, getting back to this list, we got Andre, we got Piper, we got Savage in different orders. Number 4 for me is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. You didn't return my phone call. Where are you? I'm at the gym. Power drive them. Does this make your list?
It's a good rivalry, but no.
All right.
The reason why it's a very short rivalry.
Sure.
My number 4 is Ric Flair.
Ric Flair was my number 5. So let's talk about Ric Flair.
So the reason why Ric Flair is my number 4 is they had a rivalry that went on for 6 years before they actually ever were in the same company together.
For many years, you look at the wrestling magazines as a kid, 80s, Ric Flair was the top of the NWA. Hogan was the top of the WF. We wanted to see that until that one day when Bobby Heenan showed up with that gold belt and saying the people that wear this belt, comparing the people who wear this belt to the belt Hogan wears, it's like comparing ice cream to horse manure.
Well, the funny thing is that even when they're finally in the same company, we still didn't really get Flair versus Hogan.
No, we didn't. Really, on the arena circuit, we did, but we never got it. On a big pay-per-view until '94.
Yeah, so basically 10 years from the time Hogan wins the WWF title with the Iron Sheik to 1994, we never get a payoff on Ric Flair versus Hogan, and the rivalry is still there among the fans. To this day,
yes,
you'll still get the argument Hogan's legacy versus Ric Flair's wrestling.
WWF, WCW, and then TNA and even WWE, I would imagine too, because it became WWE at some point. Hogan and Flair would just interact with each other for years, but they were the biggest. Hogan was the biggest superstar. Flair was the biggest wrestler. I think you could almost sum up like that. So who was your last guy? That was the one.
Vince McMahon.
I thought about having Vince. That's a good one.
So their rivalry goes throughout all of WrestleMania. Who's responsible? Who made the WWE what it is? Promoter versus performer, ego versus legacy.
Yes.
Without each other, neither would be who they are. And hopefully they got closure at some point between the two of them. But there was always that rivalry between who did what and the steroid trial and Hogan leaving for WCW. And it's such a tremendous rivalry between the two of them wanting to take credit for what the WWE is today. And quite frankly, it's both of them.
Absolutely. The reality is it's both of them. All right. I love it. Put a bow on it. But I figured, you know what? We got a little extra time here. Let's take a question. We got a question to come. Braxton Dawson, who is your favorite WWE wrestler? If we're going to go currently right now, I'm going to go Gunther / Cody Rhodes. I like Cody Rhodes' story. He's kind of my guy, but Gunther might be the finest wrestler going today. Maybe he doesn't even get enough credit, honestly. What about you?
I do love Gunther. I also love Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu is a beast of a wrestler. My underrated kind of how can I put this, dirty secret favorite wrestler right now is Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah. Hey, also, give the women some love too. Io Sky and Steph are killing it right now for me in the women division.
Oh, how about JC Jane down there in NXT? I know it's just WWE. They probably mean the main roster, but JC Jane's down there murdering it.
And if we're going to go all time, if we want to go with some legends, I'll throw in some people like Bryan Danielson, Bret Hart. You want to go even further, some wrestlers that you may not remember in WWE, Terry Funk, Ricky Steamboat. Those are some of my favorites too.
Yeah, I mean,
Kurt Angle.
We have similar Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit. I know that one's going to get me some heat. Owen Hart, one of my all-time favorites. I wish we could have seen what Owen could have done. Mm-hmm. And then I think my all-time WWE currently favorite, even though he wasn't tremendous in the WWE, he was better in WCW. I love Barry Windham.
All right. Barry Windham is tremendous. And since I have just a little more time here, and I think me and Joe are going to do a show about this week, I will just ask you some exclusive picks here for SummerSlam, AJ. We won't do all the matches. I'll put you on the spot just a little bit here, though. Let's talk about Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill.
I think Tiffany Stratton's going over.
Randy Orton and Jelly Roll versus Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul.
I hope they cancel the match and just call it quits.
CM Punk versus Gunther.
I think CM Punk's going over.
He won me over last night on Raw with the speech and the promo. I feel like he's getting momentum. I could see that. I'll make my
so there's a reason why I feel that way. Who's going to have the briefcase still? Seth Rollins. He's out injured. You've got CM Punk able to try to fight off Braun Breaker for the next several months.
Yeah.
And then Seth Rollins cashes in on him.
I like it. Judgment Day, Raquel Rodriguez, Roxanne Perez versus Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. I'm low-key really liking this Alexa Bliss Charlotte Flair combo.
I'm not going to lie. I like all four of the competitors in this match.
Yeah.
But I really hope Charlotte and Alexis win. I want to see this team.
Yeah.
I know they're not friends, but quite frankly, they could both be friends of mine.
I think it's really kind of revitalizing Charlotte Flair right now, too.
She seems to be
enjoying
herself.
Roman Reigns and Jey Uso getting laid out last night on Raw. They must be losing to Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. It's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, that's not a real good sign for Braun and Bronson.
No, Sammy. Now this is an interesting one. Sami Zayn versus Karrion Kross. Ah, man, you're building up Sammy as the ultimate underdog, but we know Sammy's been beaten down here, and we know Karrion doesn't fight. I feel like Karrion Kross is the ultimate underdog here. The fact he even made it on the pay-per-view is blowing me away. I'm happy for the guy to be on the pay-per-view, but I'd like to see him win. Am I going to get?
I don't know who you're picking in this one, but I'm picking Karrion Kross. I'm going to try to will this to happen. I also, by the way, when Sammy has to admit that he's a bad guy, I'm hoping it's a legitimate heel turn for Sammy and that he actually does do something horrible.
It'd be interesting to see Sammy and Karrion together. Yeah, interesting. All right, let's go down night 2 real quick, and we'll finish up. Okay. The ultimate TLC match just got added here. We got the Wyatt Six. We got Andrade and Rey Fenix, DIY, Faxium, the Motor City Machine Guns, and the Street Profits. Who's walking out with gold here?
So it's funny. I have a soft spot for the Wyatt Six, obviously, because of what happened with Bray Wyatt, and I like Bo Dallas. But I think that they've really dropped the ball with this storyline, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano are still two of the most entertaining people on the TV every time they're on TV. Yeah. So I'm going with my heart, and I could be far off on this. Let's go Ciampa and Gargano.
Low key, they've been building up Phoenix and Andrade up until they didn't win the title. I do want to point out something. A team that hasn't been on TV, Legado Fantasma. They are now the AAA Tag Team Champions. Maybe we're building up to some kind of lucha feud here. Just might be
which could very well. My mind is telling me that that's something that could definitely happen. In this occasion. I'm not listening to my mind, and I'm just going with my heart.
All right, Dominic Mysterio, low-key one of your favorites against one of you guys I know you didn't mention, but is a favorite, AJ Styles, who's walking out with the gold.
I do love AJ. God. I think Dominic's still going to walk out with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not his time to drop that title just yet. I could see that. All right. Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, U.S. title in a cage.
I think Solo's going to find a way to walk out with it. I'm hoping Jacob wins, but I think Solo finds a way to win this.
Becky Lynch, Lyra Valkyria, no disqualification, no countout, last chance match for the women Intercontinental Champions. If Lynch wins, Valkyria can no longer challenge for the title for as long as Lynch is champ.
I think Valkyria wins this one.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
This is a tough one. Naomi, Rhea, and Sky for a triple threat for that women's championship.
I think Naomi's still walking out with it.
All right. Then one more. The last one it is. John Cena, Cody Rhodes.
God.
I guess the question is, do you think Cody's going to win and Seth cashes, or do you think Cena finds
I don't think Seth is healthy enough to cash. Yep. I really think he's going after CM Punk. I think John Cena's walking out with the title. I think that the street fight actually makes it easier for John Cena to win, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. Usually these street fights that seem like the heel's going to get their up-and-comings usually doesn't work out that way. I
will say this, though. If Cody's not winning here, then there's probably a bigger plan in place. and you could maybe see the return of somebody.
This could be where you see the return of The Rock. It is SummerSlam in New Jersey.
Yeah.
We haven't seen The Rock since the actual turn of John Cena. This could be that moment.
Could be. All right, guys. It's been fun talking about Hulk Hogan matches. It's been fun talking about a lot of things in wrestling, adding to SummerSlam talk. Fun having AJ here. Guys, as always, like and subscribe. But in the meantime, check out some of these great books.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.
Author Ray Lopez presents Lockup, Professional Wrestling in Our World. Lockup dives headfirst into the colorful world of professional wrestling. Explore the iconic characters, careers, matches, history, and families, and delve into the bizarre and fascinating entwining of professional wrestling and film, television, football, politics, gender, and race. Pre-orders are available now on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com. This is the perfect gift for the wrestling fan in your life. Pick up a copy today on Amazon.com or at